We now know how Russiagate got started, and we know that it was all a lie started by the Hillary Clinton campaign. That the Hillary Clinton campaign realized she was in trouble because of her email scandal, which had broken in 2015 in the wake of Benghazi. We found these emails of hers that were weird, and people were like, what server was that on, and so on. And it created a problem for her all the way up to Election Day 2016.
But I could see them and hear them in my ear, and they said, Tulsi Gabbard, you're coming out and criticizing Hillary Clinton and her foreign policy record. Aren't you afraid of what she'll do to you? He asked me this on live television on MSNBC. And you're laughing. I laughed too. I was like, no, I am not afraid of what Hillary Clinton can do to me.
Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard teaming up to roast Hillary Clinton. Feels like unleashing a tag team armed with sharp tongues and unrelenting. It's truth against a political heavyweight who thought she'd seen it all. From campaign failures to decades of scandals, they don't miss a beat. Hillary's carefully polished image buckles under the weight of their critiques, exposing contradictions and missteps that haunted her climb to power. This isn't simple criticism, it's a full-scale dismantling, delivered with biting wit, raw fire, and zero hesitation.
Of course, is the original election denier. I'm sure you voted for her in 2016.
Well, she's not an election denier.
She absolutely was the OG election denier.
First of all, she came out before the sun had risen to concede the election to Trump.
And then spent the next 4 years saying he was illegitimate. He was an illegitimate president.
Okay, well, first of all, she didn't say he was an illegitimate.
Yes, she did.
You tell me exactly what she said.
She said those exact words repeatedly.
They are using the same old tactic that the deep state's propaganda arm in the media uses. Whenever they come across something that is true and that doesn't go along with whatever their narrative is that they're trying to shove down the throats of the American people, they first usually ignore it, as they did when I first released these documents.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. God. Megyn Kelly's razor-sharp commentary slices straight through the facade of establishment politics, exposing Hillary Clinton's chronic inability to connect with everyday voters despite decades in the spotlight. She strips away the layers of scripted speeches and manufactured empathy, revealing a politician more obsessed with optics than substance. Kelly mocks Hillary's endless rebranding efforts, turning each recycled campaign slogan into a punchline about missed chances and misplaced priorities.
Stole his first term as president. These absolute liars who run around trying to act like they're the protectors of democracy completely ruined it, tried to undermine it at every turn and at the highest levels with lies, with out-and-out lies that were really serious, and changed foreign policy and changed the course of history in this country in Trump's presidency. And there must be accountability. There has to be actual criminal accountability for those who lied. And I can't wait to see this administration do it.
Tulsi Gabbard delivers a sharp insider's perspective, dismantling Hillary Clinton's foreign policy record with surgical precision. From questionable choices in the Middle East to cozy relationships with powerful elites, Tulsi highlights a legacy riddled with contradictions and moral compromises. Her critique underscores how Hillary's actions often clashed with her stated ideals, exposing a politician driven more by power than genuine progress.
The fact that all of these pieces fit quite seamlessly together, creating a very clear timeline that shifted from before the election, the intelligence community almost uniformly saying essentially that Russia is trying to sow discord in the US election, but has no preference for one candidate over another. And then all of a sudden, Trump wins the election, surprising many people, both here and abroad, as we've learned in later documents that we've reviewed, that throughout that campaign, Russia believed that Hillary Clinton would win the election.
Together, Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard deliver a crushing takedown that shatters the cracks in Hillary Clinton's armor. From scandals to gaffes, to her chronic failure to inspire genuine trust, Nothing escapes their scrutiny. They're combined. Voices dismantle the carefully crafted myth, exposing a career defined less by true achievement and more by controversy and squandered opportunities. It's a relentless roast free of spin, free of excuses, a candid reckoning with a figure who once seemed untouchable but now stands undone.
And our audience knows this, and you guys, but just for the record, let's play SOT 10.
I do think that he knows that he's an illegitimate president. I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And as I've been telling candidates who have come to see me, you can run the best campaign, you can even become the nominee, and you can have the election stolen from you.
We're trying to tell the American people the truth and expose these people, many of whom you just showed, for who they are as the propaganda arm of the deep state, which would have no power and no influence if they weren't able to feed their lies into a willing spokesperson through the propaganda media.
Hillary Clinton's political career has been a spectacle of contradictions. Roller coaster of lofty expectations followed by crushing disappointments. Tulsi Gabbard doesn't just highlight her missteps, she shines a light on the glaring gap between Clinton's carefully polished public image and the chaotic reality behind the scenes. It's the portrait of a politician who mastered the art of remaining in the spotlight. It consistently failed to capture the genuine trust and hearts of the people she claimed to serve.
So what is so concerning about what Hillary Clinton is doing here is she is not only calling me a traitor, she is not only trying to smear my character, she's sending a warning out to every veteran, every single American, anyone who stands up against the warmongering foreign policies that really are her legacy, that have been so destructive and costly to my brothers and sisters in uniform.
Megyn Kelly's critique zeroes in on Hillary Clinton's communication style, polished yet hollow, rehearsed but devoid of authenticity. She paints a striking picture of a politician whose words often felt like they were lifted straight from a teleprompter, designed more to charm focus groups than to inspire genuine connection. Kelly highlights how Clinton's campaign speeches, stuffed with lofty promises and sweeping visions, consistently rang hollow to voters exhausted by political doublespeak. This wasn't the voice of a leader igniting a movement, Kelly argues, but of a politician desperately clinging to relevance in a rapidly shifting political landscape. Meanwhile, Tulsi Gabbard brings an insider's perspective that sharpens the critique even further. With the precision of someone who's seen the stakes firsthand, Tulsi dissects Hillary's foreign policy record. From Libya's destabilization to the chaos in Syria, she exposes how Clinton's decisions often carried devastating consequences, far removed from campaign soundbites. Tulsi underscores a troubling pattern of interventionist policies that undercut the ideals of peace and diplomacy Hillary claimed to champion. Together, Kelly and Gabbard reveal the gap between Clinton's carefully managed image and her real recorded juggling act that only fueled mistrust among voters who saw through the facade.
And as she got closer to Election Day, she decided to concoct two lies about Donald Trump to distract from her email scandal. She got the Steele dossier through this Fusion GPS company that her campaign paid, and she got this group CrowdStrike, which was the one responsible for the hack into that. That's the one that said that the Russians hacked the DNC email.
Megyn Kelly doesn't hold back when it comes to Hillary Clinton's obsession with controlling the narrative through the media. She exposes how Clinton's campaign leveraged influence over coverage and worked to silence dissent, fostering an atmosphere where criticism was met with swift, often aggressive backlash, instead of transparent, accountable leadership. Voters got a tightly managed PR machine, meticulously crafted to shield a fragile image at all costs. Tulsi Gabbard sharpens the critique further by tackling Hillary's failure to adapt to a shifting political landscape. She underscores how Clinton's campaign underestimated the growing frustration among working-class voters, whose struggles were routinely dismissed or overlooked. That disconnect, Tulsi argues, created the perfect opening for opponents to exploit. leaving Hillary vulnerable and even turning some of her own supporters into skeptics. The roast also revisits the infamous email scandal, which both Kelly and Tulsi agree was far more than a simple political misstep. Tulsi emphasizes its broader implications, framing it as emblematic of a deeper pattern: poor judgment, questionable ethics, and a troubling disregard for accountability that defined much of Hillary's career.
When I resigned as vice chair of the DNC in 2016, specifically so that I could campaign against Hillary Clinton in that Democratic primary.
Megyn Kelly zeroes in on the contradictions of Hillary Clinton's rise, noting how it was celebrated as a triumph of breaking glass ceilings. Yet her campaign tactics often clashed with the solidarity expected of a true feminist icon. Tulsi Gabbard adds to this critique by highlighting the missed opportunities to build authentic coalitions. Opportunities that were instead sacrificed for calculated political moves that ultimately alienated potential allies. As the roast unfolds, Kelly and Tulsi don't merely recount Clinton's failures, they dismantled the myth of inevitability that surrounded her political career. They challenged the assumption that her victory was ever guaranteed, exposing a campaign riddled with strategic missteps, unchecked overconfidence, and a dangerous underestimation of her opposition. Their analysis strips away the media hype to reveal a candid portrait of a campaign struggling to connect with a skeptical and diverse electorate. The roast also underscores how Hillary's legacy is complicated by the polarized reactions she inspires. Kelly highlights that, while she commands loyalty among some supporters, she simultaneously represents deep frustration and disillusionment for others. Tulsi echoes this, framing Clinton's career as a cautionary tale about the limits of ambition. When it isn't matched by genuine responsiveness to the people.
One of the pieces that Glenn and I were getting close to in the discussion was the Hillary piece of this. And the evidence, because that is, they do name a couple of names in this appendix on who came up with this scam. And the name that we keep seeing over and over, as one of them at least, was Julianne Smith. Schellenberger writes Julianne. It's Julianne. He writes, the alleged creator of the plan was Julianne Smith, a Clinton policy advisor.
The conclusion lands with weight and clarity. Megyn Kelly and Tulsi Gabbard's combined critique frames Hillary Clinton not as a victim of circumstance, but as the architect of her own political undoing. They argue that her legacy will be remembered, less for any groundbreaking milestones, and more for the opportunities squandered. 8. The trust she failed to secure, and the polished image that eventually collapsed under relentless scrutiny. This is no mere roast, it's a reckoning. A demand to look past the myths in media, spin and confront the complicated realities of one of America's most scrutinized political figures. Kelly and Tulsi remind us that in politics, as in life, authenticity and accountability carry far more weight than carefully rehearsed speeches or photo-ready optics. Together, they drill into the core of what went wrong, not just on the campaign trail, but in the very DNA of Hillary's political persona. What emerges is a portrait of a woman who tried to be everything to everyone, and in the process, became nothing to anyone.
Also, in this latest House report, they talk about how they also in the House, this is the House in 2020, pointing out that the ICA of 2017 ignored evidence that Putin seemed to be protecting Hillary Clinton in a couple of ways. It did not mention, for example, that Putin chose not to leak info he appeared to have on Hillary Clinton's health, including that she suffered from psycho-emotional problems and was on daily tranquilizers. We don't know whether that's true. We know that Putin appeared to have that intel in his pocket and chose not.
Leaving the criminal charges to the Department of Justice. I am not an attorney, but as I've said previously, when you look at the intent behind creating a fake manufactured intelligence document that directly contradicts multiple assessments that were created by the intelligence community, the expressed intent and what followed afterward can only be described as a years-long coup and a treasonous conspiracy against the American people.
Megyn Kelly exposes the calculated nature of Hillary Clinton's public image. revealing a politician who carefully constructed a persona meant to appeal broadly, but ultimately resonated with very few. The polished speeches, the rehearsed displays of empathy, and the endless attempts to seem relatable all landed as hollow echoes rather than genuine connections. Kelly's critique cuts deep when authenticity is sacrificed for optics. Voters can sense it tanned. That gap is a political death sentence. Tulsi Gabbard adds a sharp insider's perspective, tearing into the political calculus behind Hillary's decisions, particularly in foreign policy. She scrutinizes the legacy of military interventions, the cozy ties with powerful global elites, and the choices that left regions destabilized. Kelly underscores how Hillary's rise was paved with calculated compromises, often at the expense of her own stated values. Tulsi highlights the missed opportunities to stand firmly on issues that mattered most to voters, suggesting that Clinton's endless maneuvering and shifting stances ultimately eroded trust, leaving her more defined by ambition than by conviction.
So the Russians were able to hack Leonard, and that's where they saw the plan. And we now have in the Durham Annex, like full screen grabs of the Russian memos that the Dutch got their hands on and leaked to us, where the Russians are recounting exactly what they saw Leonard discussing about this Hillary Clinton fan and emissary, Julianne Smith, and how they were going to stop Trump, undermine Trump, but most importantly, distract from Hillary's email scandal.
Hillary Clinton's media strategy comes under fire, with Megyn Kelly pointing out how her campaign's attempts to control the narrative often backfired spectacularly. Efforts to silence dissent and manipulate coverage created an atmosphere of defensiveness rather than transparency. Tulsi Gabbard builds on this, emphasizing that in a political climate hungry for openness, such tactics only bred deeper skepticism and suspicion. A central focus of the roast is Hillary's fraught relationship with the electorate, particularly working-class voters who felt abandoned. Kelly highlights how the campaign's polished messaging often failed to address real economic concerns, leaving a void that her opponents were quick to exploit. Tulsi underscores this disconnect, stressing how a lack of meaningful engagement widened the divide between Leah and the very people she sought to represent. Then comes the infamous email scandal, dissected with no mercy. Kelly mocks the clumsy damage control efforts that turned what could have been a moment of accountability into a drawn-out circus of contradictions. Tulsi frames the scandal as a symptom of something bigger, a recurring pattern of poor judgment and ethical lapses that shattered Clinton's credibility. Together, they also expose contradictions in her positioning on women's rights, deepening the portrait of inconsistency.
This woman should be in jail. Literally, Hillary Clinton should be behind bars. And so should the people who worked for her who did this. This is so blatantly corrupt. She wanted to distract from her email scandal. She cooked up a plan to accuse Trump of being a Russian agent in order to distract from her own legitimate scandal. She made up a scandal about Trump being a Russian.
Megyn Kelly highlights the tension between Hillary, Clinton's feminist rhetoric, and the political tactics she often employed to undercut female rivals. Tulsi Gabbard builds on this, arguing that such contradictions diluted what could have been a unifying message, reducing it to raw political pragmatism rather than true solidarity. As their critique unfolds, Kelly and Tulsi dismantle the myth of inevitability surrounding Hillary's rise, contending that her campaign's overconfidence blinded her too. Shifting political currents and real threats on the horizon, Kelly's sharp observations reveal a candidate who underestimated the power of grassroots movements and the public's growing appetite for genuine change. Tulsi echoes this, stressing that the failure to recognize authenticity as the new political currency was a fatal misstep in an era increasingly skeptical of establishment figures. The roast culminates in a pointed assessment of Hillary's legacy. Kelly and Tulsi remind audiences that political success is not simply about breaking glass ceilings. It's about forging real connections with the people. In the end, Hillary's story serves both as a warning and as a guidepost for what future Leadership must embody